The moment the glass tower caught the first light of dawn and threw it back in my face, I knew the city itself was watching, counting my breaths, waiting for me to slip. And I am Helena Montez, 35, the senior bank executive whose days are ruled by numbers, and the nights by the quiet ache of a secret ambition that grows when no one notices. I move within a world of polished desks and quiet corridors where every smile can hide a corner of the truth. And I have learned to read those smiles the way others read a balance sheet, with a careful eye and a steady heart. I did not climb by luck alone, though luck followed when it could be turned to advantage, and I kept my eyes on a prize that felt almost sacred, a place where decisions were not shouted in a crowded room, but weighed in a chamber of calm, where pressure becomes strategy, and every move is a note in a larger symphony. That hidden ambition is not a glittering surface, but a spine of purpose that steadies me when the room grows loud with glass and gossip, a resolve to bend an institution toward justice as I define it, to tame the chaos of ambition with discipline, to prove that power can be more than a reward and more than a show. The personal event that frames this episode arrived like a thunderclap in a quiet morning. A betrayal that cut through the trust I wore like a suit of armor. The kind you never quite shed, even when the sun comes up and the city keeps its pulse. I had believed in a future with someone who claimed to be my equal, a partner who could match a plan with a kiss, a friend who knew my history and still chose me. But one night, I found the man I trusted, the man I allowed to share the weight of my heart, tangled in the arms of the woman I had stood by in every storm. The room, barely lit, smelled of coffee and fear and the copper tang of disappointment. And the two of them laughed as if the revelation were merely a joke, a misread signal, rather than a life brick dropped on my chest. They did not see the look in my eyes, a calm I learned to wear when the world demanded heat, nor the quiet tremor that travels through a person when justice stops being a dream and starts being a plan. From that moment, I swore I would not chase revenge with rage, but with the precision of a well-oiled machine. I would not burn the world to scorch one flame, but rearrange the heat until the truth could not be denied. I would turn every fragment of that betrayal into fuel for a different kind of victory. Years passed in a blur of late nights, meetings that mattered more than a wedding, and the steady rise of a reputation built on results and restraint. The sort of ascent that makes people whisper about luck, and I prefer to hear only the echo of my own steps. The rhythm that tells me I am still moving towards something I can hold in my hands without apology. And then the moment came when the man who betrayed me, the once trusted lover and the companion of my secrets, walked into my world once more, not as a partner, but as a pawn, a name on a page and a face that would have been familiar if not for the sharp edge of consequence I had sharpened for this exact day. He did not know what I was ready to do, nor did he expect the quiet fury that rides behind a soft voice and a steady gaze, the kind that never shouts but always lands the final blow where it hurts the most, in the soul that believes itself irresistible, in the career that feeds on bravado, in the future that he once thought was his to claim. I watched him re-emerge into the bank's orbit, a former flame with a new currency, and I did not recoil. I did not smile with the easy mercy people expect from someone who has learned to forgive for the sake of moving forward. I studied him. I listened to the way his voice tried to place him above the very idea of accountability, and I let the room play out its small dramas while I kept the larger script in my pocket, a script I would unfold only when the clock told me to act. the exact moment when mercy would become a tool rather than a weakness. The days that followed were a quiet victory march, a series of small but undeniable wins that reminded me how far I had traveled from the girl who once believed she needed the world's approval to keep her heart safe. I did not chase him with a wrecking ball or a public shaming, for those are cheap thrills, and I am not cheap, not anymore. Instead, I re-engineered the terms of our universe, reshaped the power dynamics around him with a careful hand, and in this new economy, he found himself tethered to a chair in a corner of the building where I now called the shots, a place where his pride could heal only if he learned the true meaning of accountability. It began with a project I knew would test his resolve, a project I had already planned to launch with a different ally, but fate and intention rearranged the plan to suit the truth that needed telling. I invited him into a room that smelled of clean wood and old leather, the walls lined with the kind of quiet authority that only years of results can earn. And I spoke not to him as a scorned lover or a scorned friend, but as the person who would decide whether he would be useful or a warning to others. He listened as I laid out the mandate, a complex arc of risk and return that would demand the kind of discipline he had never learned in the careless tremor of youth. I watched the lines in his face tighten as he realized I would be the one to say yes or no to his future, that the handwriting on his fate would be mine to seal. The first test came with a quarterly review, a room full of analysts and a handful of executives who could smell fear or taste power in the air, and I let him stand at the podium, delivering a plan that sounded polished but needed a dozen clean edits in the margins. He fumbled in just the right ways, enough to reveal his flaws, enough to remind him that I was the one who would decide which flaws could be forgiven and which would crush him under the momentum of a single misstep. The moment did not arrive with fireworks or a confession, but with a quiet, cold clarity that moved through the room like a chill, a certainty that the past would not dictate the future, that the ledger of trust can be balanced only when the debtor pays with what matters most, and what matters most to him at this point was his role within my empire. I did not celebrate in the moment, not with the room watching and not with the clock ticking, but the satisfaction of the outcome settled in my chest like a secret gain, a reward I kept close because I knew the price of letting the feeling loose would be paid by someone else next time. He learned soon enough that the old warmth he had taken for granted did not survive the winter of consequence, that the warmth of the past would melt away under the heat of now. And as the weeks stretched into months, I watched him straighten his conduct, adjust his plans, and begin to understand what accountability truly requires. In the end, the arrangement I secured was neither a revenge poster nor a cruel renaming of a relationship that could never be the same, but a new order in which he would report to me, not as a lover, not as a confidant, but as a subordinate who has earned his place back only by proving he can keep his own promises when the world is watching and the numbers are counting against him. It was not about vengeance as a spectacle. It was about justice served cold, the kind that does not scorch the earth, but leaves a map in its ashes. A guide for others who dare to believe that betrayal can erase talent or derail a life. I walked the corridors after the meetings with a steady pace and a breath I did not pretend to mistake for ease, because ease had never truly belonged to me, not when a heart once betrayed must learn to trust again, and not when a career that rose on restraint demands a future built on discipline. The city woke around me with its usual commas and clauses, and I kept my pace, tasting the metallic tang of morning coffee on my tongue and feeling the weight of the power I carry, the quiet certainty that I could hold a room simply by listening and then speaking with precision. The man who had betrayed me now lived inside the walls of my own creation, not a memory to be mourned or a wound to be displayed, but a living reminder that the path to lasting influence runs through the center of your most painful truth. That the act of turning a hurt into a plan can be the strongest form of mercy, because mercy without leverage is merely kindness, and kindness without consequence is a mirror that never changes. And so I move forward, not with the gleam of revenge alone, but with the steady glow of a justice that is earned. A justice that does not forget the past, but uses it to fortify the future. A future where the man who betrayed me exists within my carefully ordered world, not as a cautionary tale, but as a testament to the fact that a woman who refuses to be broken can bend even the hardest truth into a law she enforces with quiet, unyielding power. I am Helena Montez, 35, and this is how I defend what is mine, not with shouts or scars, but with a mind that calculates and a heart that forgives only when forgiveness serves the larger good. And if that means the old flames are turned into new lessons and a single tender pride becomes a fortress, then so be it. For in the end, the balance sheet of my life reads not only as a record of achievement, but as a map toward a future where justice is not an oath spoken aloud, but a daily practice, and where the man who thought he could break my trust learned